Everyone, this is Youza and this is The Female Angle, a podcast about women and their stories and some wise advice. Today with me, I have a very special guest. Her name is Noor Mandviwala. She is a lawyer, she is a poet, she is a guitarist, and she is an entrepreneur and much more. Noor,
Youza,
how are you, Noor?
I'm good. How are you?
How's your day been?
It's been great because I started it by having chai with you. So
Ooh, okay, yeah. We did have a little chai session because we're running a little late on time, but we will manage. We will manage like everything, indeed. So, Noor, I want to talk about how you because Noor, you studied law, right?
I did, yes.
At
SOAS.
SOS, yeah. So, just tell me about that experience. Let's start from how you got interested in law as a degree and how you transitioned to being an entrepreneur.
Okay, so I think when I started applying for university and stuff, I was 18. And if I'm going to be honest with you, I really didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. I think there's so much pressure on like young people to kind of figure out what they want for the rest of their lives. And it's almost unfair to ask them to make that decision at such a young age. So I was like super, super confused. I come from a family of lawyers, so I just thought, okay, whatever the hell, I'll apply and see what happens. So
Continue the family legacy.
yeah, and I mean, it's something that's useful, like that degree is useful to me on a daily basis almost.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Like law is never something that can't be useful, right? So I applied and I got in and I was like, okay, let's do this. And throughout law school, like I learned so many invaluable things. But then when I moved back, throughout the 3 years there as well, I always kind of felt like, I don't know. I started really liking it in my third year, but I never really was sure about practice. So when I came back, my mom, she runs Toni and Guy, and she was actually bringing in a new franchise of a Sri Lankan retail business.
Okay.
So she said, I could use the help. Why don't you help me out? So I said, okay.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a beautiful accident because it started with me kind of just helping her out. And then I was like, damn, I really enjoy this. I like the business world, and I think it's so invigorating and fulfilling, especially as a woman here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of how it happened, a beautiful accident.
No, actually, I wanted to ask you. You said, okay, obviously, law as a field is very helpful, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember any instance in Pakistan where you having a law degree was specifically helpful? Like, you run into a police. You're like, okay, this is against my constitutional rights, or does that not happen?
Mostly, I mean, I've never run into the police, thank God. But
I know someone who has.
Never had a run-in with them, at least not yet.
Yeah, but were like, you're defying my constitutional rights. I know the Constitution. And I was like, okay.
But mostly, I mean, it's been useful in like a business context, like in terms of, for example, contract law, drafting up agreements, things like that. Like,
ooh, so you know how to do those?
Yeah, I mean, I can. I still need a little bit of help with it because, like I said, I'm not practicing. But my sister is practicing, so I usually kind of ask her, like, please check this for me.
Cool.
And interpreting contracts and, like, reading what you sign, making sure that you understand what you're obligated to do. So those, I think the most useful skill is reflective in that aspect of what I'm currently doing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What I find fascinating is the jargon used in law because it's a pretty strict jargon. Like, I've heard in law, if you even like make a spelling mistake, that could cost you like billions of dollars. Or is that exaggerated? But then to juxtapose that, you're also a poet.
Yeah.
And a poet's job is to play around with words. So it's a pretty unique combination of language.
I think I've always loved writing. I've always loved the humanities. I think that's what pushed me towards law. Like, I still love reading about like legal arguments and legal text. I just didn't think the practice itself was for me because I'm edging towards more like creative stuff rather than just strictly corporate.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I've just always loved writing. And I mean, I only started writing poetry like 2 years ago. So it's a fairly recent thing that I'm still discovering for myself.
All right.
Yeah.
Was there a specific text of book you read or a specific moment in your life where you realized the magic of poetry, or was it sudden?
It was sudden. I mean, I think I've always read and enjoyed poetry, especially poets like Frank O'Hara is like one of my favorite poets.
Ooh, nice.
But it kind of happens almost. It's like a feeling that comes, and it's my way of processing what happens around me. Like if it's bad news or good news, it's just a kind of like that's how I understand the world, and I have to just put it on paper to process that thing for myself. So it's almost, it started off as a very selfish thing. Like I did it for myself to understand my feelings, but now
Not selfish at all. Man, do you.
but now it's kind of like I like writing about things that I observe externally.
Okay, so it's kind of like therapy for you, like, you know, it's a way to release certain emotions.
Very true. Yeah.
It's beautiful. But I wanted to talk about language, and particularly in the context of violence against women.
Yes.
Because you, if you guys haven't checked out Noor's poem on Noor Muqaddam, it's beautiful, it's heart-wrenching, and it will make you feel all the feels. But I wanted to talk about language in the context of women, because language is unique, because language, like the way we speak, can come with a lot of interpretations and a lot of power. And, you know, even the way language is shaped around women, it's very passive.
Yes.
Violence against women. How many women were raped? Not who raped how many women, you know? Like,
Exactly.
it's always like violence. Like, why not who did the crime? Like, you know, like Sarosh, like, so, like, you know, the name is always like the women is always gasted.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's time we shift the onus on the males, right? Like, males are taught, males are learned this behavior, not taught this behavior.
Correct. Correct.
What do you have to say about that?
So I recently came across this scholar. His name is Jackson Katz, and I really recommend everyone check out his TED Talk from 2012 because I mean, it blew my mind really. And he talks a lot about the language that we use when we discuss violence against women, and he doesn't use that as a phrase in isolation. Instead, he says men's violence against women, because
Perfect, yeah.
it's not just you need to, like you said, shift the focus on the perpetrator of the crime rather than the victim. And it's interesting because the way that the current language is framed in news and in media, it takes attention away from the men. And it focuses
Exactly.
more on the victim. And it's interesting because when you make that discourse primarily, when you switch that up and you make it primarily about men, you focus on the fact that, hang on, this is a men's issue. What's going on with men? Why are they committing these crimes? Why are they becoming violent in the first place? Those are the questions that you really need to get down to.
Exactly.
Because right now, like, it's almost like our cognitive thinking is kind of, including our own as women, because of just things that we see on the media on a daily basis, it's wired to blame victims rather than look at, hey, 1 second, this is a man's problem.
Exactly. And I felt like we were also very shamed. Like, you know, we speak on feminism, it's like an anti-male issue. It's so suddenly seen as an aggressive issue. And, like, you know, if males or like you see those boy locker room talks where they're just like, you know, if they're saying something problematic, the other guy is afraid to say it in that context.
Yeah.
But he's still going to be like, because then the males would make him feel like less of a man.
Yeah.
Which is really weird because, you know, a lot of the arguments that I hear are, like, you know, मर्दों के साथ भी तो violence होता है. But do you know, ज़्यादातर मर्दों के साथ जो violence होता है, statistically that's true.
It's from men as well.
It's from men as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So why don't they highlight that मर्दों के खिलाफ जो violence होता है और औरतों के खिलाफ, it's from men.
Yeah.
It's from these macho men that we see, the toxic men that we interact with, who are hiding themselves.
Yeah.
And I think it's time to, like, you know, for them to stand up, because I feel like, you know, masculine men have a lot of influence, and it's sometimes women need to take a back seat. Sometimes the men need to speak up. Like, I feel so relieved when I see a male friend of mine speaking up on feminism, because I'm like, dude, good for you. Like, you know, it's fucking time, like, you know, do something about it.
Same here. And I mean, going back to what you said about language, I think all these gender-based issues, just the way that we discuss it, I mean, it should be inclusive of men because, as you said correctly, it also affects men as well. Like, toxic masculinity is something that's real, and that is also a major cause of all these other problems.
Yeah, like, I was so happy. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we need more men to have that kind of courage and strength to be able to talk about it, because it's not only affecting probably women who are dear to them in their own lives, but them as well, because why should you feel as if you're being feminine just because, as a man, just because you're speaking about women's rights? I mean,
Yeah.
if you say it out loud, almost like all this talk of how language interacts with the gender issues of the world, it almost sounds obvious. Like these issues are affecting men and women, so why don't men also start talking
I
about
know.
it? Like,
Why does it seem as such a aggressive or such a targeted issue? Like, you know, you're targeting someone because, truth be told, their privileges are being affected.
yeah,
A lot of men are gonna lose up on toxic privileges that they are gaining from it. Even most of the domestic violence cases that we see in Pakistan, it's not because that anger or he's an alcoholic. That's part of that, but it's more about controlling
yeah,
the person, like controlling, like, why isn't she listening to me? I need to control her, so I'm gonna beat her up. You know, that's the shift that we're seeing, and it's kind of sad because I feel like our leaders, like Imran Khan, or like in the UK or like wherever in the world,
they let you down.
they let us down
Yeah,
time
yeah.
and time again. Like, I would be so happy to see Imran Khan for once say, okay, you know, men aren't robots. Men
True.
should control themselves.
True. And the thing is that, I mean, for me, I know that earlier when we had a discussion, you were talking about how words can be super powerful. Sometimes it feels, as a writer, because I feel let down by all of these institutions, that's my only place to go. So there is a certain powerlessness I also feel, you know, because
Yeah.
that's where I go to when nothing else gives me what I want, you know?
Ah.
So,
So, you're a writer, but you're also a musician.
yeah.
So, how does music play a role in all of that?
Music is something that's I've just loved since like I was a kid. I've
Really?
just been obsessed with it, literally, and I've played instruments since I was a kid. I've been singing for a while.
By the way, guys, Noor is a phenomenal singer. You should check her out.
Thank you. That's very kind. But yeah, and I mean, since we're talking about the female angle, I mean, there's like, I think for every 20 male singers, there's one female singer in Pakistan that at least
Ooh,
is
is that
in.
similar in the music industry too?
Yeah.
Oh my
So
god, that's actually news to me.
that's what I've been told, at least. And from what I've observed, like working in studios and stuff, most of the people, most producers I've spoken to are men. There is definitely not enough female representation in the music industry either.
There
Yeah.
isn't.
And there's a lot of like, from what I've heard, it's not very much a safe space. So that's what would make someone like me feel hesitant to.
It's interesting you bring this up because I have a lot of I'm doing my degree. Like, my degree is basically production, right?
Yes.
So basically, a lot of my seniors, they're working at production houses, and I won't name any, but they say a lot of the comments that they get is, "Oh, she slept her way through," which is the most disrespectful thing you can say about a girl.
Yeah.
Which is, you are undermining all her achievements at that point.
Yeah.
And it's sad, but people think like this. And you know, it also benefits us. Like, you know, sexism. Like, I was working at a place and he was like, "Oh, baji, aap nahi jaye, aap aurat hain, hum aapke liye kursi bichha dete hain," and stuff like that. And like, you know, it's not to say only men commit violence against women, and that, you know, women daughter violence nahi hota, ya
Yeah,
lesbian
yeah.
bantering nahi hoti.
Yeah.
Lekin majority of the violence, right, that's committed by men.
Yeah.
So it's good that we, like, you know, we need to speak up on that.
Yeah.
So tell me more about Toni and Guy, though. Shifting to a less serious topic.
Yeah.
So you have beautiful hair, by the way, man.
Thank
Like,
you.
I just can't stop staring at the
Like
feathers and the layers are just flowing through.
It kind of needs to be a bit of a marketing gimmick because, like, I can't not have nice hair at this
can't.
point.
Yeah. True.
But I'm glad it's working.
I'm glad it's working. Yeah. I think it's definitely working. But tell me about how you managed Toni and Guy.
So my mom brought Toni and Guy, I think, about nearly 15 years ago to Pakistan. It was actually the first international salon business to come into South Asia at that time. I believe it was, I think it was 2005 or 2006, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But she opened the flagship salon in 2008.
Okay.
And it's cool because, I mean, like I said, beautiful accident how I started working with her, right? But now she's one of my biggest inspirations in the sense of being an empowered, independent woman. And I feel like not a lot of people, especially in Pakistan, considering, like, you know, most of our nation lives in poverty, like people don't have those kind of role models in their homes to look up to.
Yeah.
So I feel really blessed to be able to
Grateful and
have
blessed.
that.
Yeah.
And even within the Toni and Guy business, I mean, a lot of the women that we employ, they're badass. I mean, I feel inspired every day at work because we have single moms who are supporting households and supporting children. We have abandoned wives, like really
wow.
like sad stories. But what's great to see is that, and speaking about the business and from an employer's perspective, once you give those women the chance and the environment to thrive in a space where they feel like they can move forward and grow and feel safe, they do really thrive. I mean, they're doing great.
You could
So
not have said it in better terms, because I
yeah,
feel like majority of the women in Pakistan just need an opportunity to
yeah,
thrive.
yeah.
If you just give them a platform, this is why I started this, honestly, because I just wanted, even though I am bringing, realistically, I am bringing people from a upper middle class, but just because someone from an upper middle class or a lower middle class family does not mean that they do not have problems, or
Yeah.
women do not struggle, or they do not find parallels of
And I
women.
also feel like when you're in a position where you have a voice, like you said, because I write, when you have that ability to put pen to paper and make sense out of things, I almost feel an obligation to say something. I would feel guilty if I didn't.
Dude, like 100%, because I feel like if someone is not saying something, if they're complicit, they're actively participating in that complicity.
Yeah.
Like, like a lot of my men friends, like sweet male friends, I get really prickly about like male issues, and they're just like, oh, why are you telling this to us? We've never like laid eyes on a woman or heard a woman that way. I was like, okay, tell me one incident where you explicitly defended a woman's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of them went silent. So, it's like I feel very happy that some men are speaking out, but I just feel like there needs to be more of them. And hopefully, I really hope men also listen to my podcast and men read up on some books
Yeah.
about feminism,
Yeah.
and we can educate them in a nicer manner. Also, I feel like sometimes feminism, for all its perks, comes off a little aggressive too. Just at the Aurat March, I saw a lot of men participating, and I feel like that should have been highlighted more. I love the Aurat March. I go there every year.
Yeah.
But I feel like if they are participating, because those men can convince their male friends about
Yeah.
toxic behavior. Like like if there's a male friend who's like constantly stalking his ex, and like constantly asking her where she is or who she's seeing. We all know people like that. So, and if one brave male friend says कि भाई जो तुम कर रहे हो, that's problematic behavior, you need to stop. Not just because he's concerned about his friend's girlfriend, but he's concerned about the friend itself.
Yeah.
Because these toxic behaviors isolate the perpetuator. So I think what you said is really true. We need to start seeing it as a root कि भाई ये violence stem कहाँ से होता है.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like, I'm not an expert on the issue and I'm not claiming to be, but I feel like it's something that everyone should at least be aware of.
I know.
Yeah.
And, I don't think, because women have experienced assault like in some manner or the other,
Yeah.
almost like 99% of us. So even if someone isn't an expert, we've experienced it. So
True.
if it's all right if, you say
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Something I think that I really wanted to discuss is what I've kind of learned being a female entrepreneur. And it's interesting because I feel like in a place where generally in Pakistan the population is, I'm not sure what the right word is to use, but maybe repressed and not very exposed in that sense. I feel like it's important, at least what I've learned, to build a very sensitive workplace. And that's something I feel like it's not talked about enough.
Sensitive workplace. Can you elaborate?
What I kind of mean, or maybe more an empathetic workplace, maybe that's a better way of framing it. Because
I think that's really important. Please go on.
so, and I find that when you kind of study places that are run by women, you will find a healthier workspace generally. Because I'll give you an example. There's an organization in Pakistan called Beti.
Okay.
And the head of that, Rama Shahid, she goes around giving gender sensitivity trainings to corporates. So,
wow.
sitting down employees and talking about, what's problematic, what's not, what you can do to help your colleagues maybe. And guys, definitely check her out. She's really cool.
I will now. She
but
sounds badass.
that kind of education is not really given even in schools here, So I think as an employer, it's important to not only do that for the women, but also for the men who work for you in order to create a really, really, really safe and workspace which encourages you to be a team player and to see everyone in an equal light.
It's actually a very good point, especially in the corporate, because I've never heard anyone say this.
So Toni and Guy actually did this globally. And I think it had different effects in different countries because it was basically a mindfulness kind of workshop, which taught you how to check in with yourself and how to be the best that you can be at work. And I thought that was really cool because it also, like you said earlier about toxic masculinity, men aren't encouraged to ever do that, right?
Yeah.
So I think it had like a knock-on effect, at least in our workspace, because we saw men being more sensitive and being, being just showing up better. And it just, the effects of that even subconsciously, I think, are great.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And scientifically also, women are proven to be more empathetic. Like, we're just more empathetic creatures.
Yeah.
So I feel like for a woman to lead those sort of workshops and to, because, men have the ability to learn. It's just that they're taught these things.
Yeah.
They're not like, it's not a genetic thing. It's not instilled in them by birth. They're taught these toxic behaviors. So if there are workshops that are offering that, I would suggest everyone to go take them, or either if they can't, just search it up on YouTube, man. Like,
And
there's
no,
so many
honestly,
online resources.
I feel like in today's world, as an employer, it's something that you have to do because it's become so important, and there's so many women that are screaming about these issues all the time.
And empathy is a very strong emotion. I
Yeah.
feel like it's seen as a weakness. It's not. Being empathetic is the most human thing one can do.
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful that you're bringing that to your workplace. So, thank you for coming to my podcast, Noor.
Thank you for having me. This
more
was
than thrilled to have
such
you.
a nice conversation.
Yeah, it was. Usually, what I do in my podcast is I smile like a hyena. So when I'm reviewing my podcast, it's just like me smiling because I'm so excited whenever anyone comes in.
Yeah.
But very, very delighted that you're here. Sorry for the mid-interruption that happened.
No worries, not at all.
But lovely to have you. And please check her out on Instagram. She has a really, really nice voice. And also, I forgot to mention, Noor is half Sri Lankan, which is very cool.
I'm like quarter or something like
Quarter Sri Lankan.
Yeah.
We're there. Okay. Okay.